We've got a rough of it, so I'm going to take a look at it again right now.
Great, thank you.
Mhm. About the certified of Winfrey's plea redacted somehow. Um, And Mr. Steele says, I know it's just going in and not going to be discussed, but at some point, and then the court says, well, yeah, I don't think it's going to go back with the jury anyway, and it's going to be redacted. Is there anything else I need to cover about it? I mean, so did it not get introduced in front of the jury and anybody say what it was? I mean, I hadn't read through the whole thing, but.
It did. The defense did not acquiesce to this, but there was a kind of a standard operating procedure where things were being admitted and we discuss whether it goes back with the jury and things like that later on.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of the back and forth that occurred, but it was admitted in front of the jury.
Did they know what it was? Or was it just, here's exhibit number
I'd
350?
defer to the transcript, but I'm pretty sure there was a discussion that Jimmy Winfrey pled guilty to, or pled whatever he pled to the charges.
Okay, so this isn't the entirety of the transcript, but then it jumps to some questioning by Miss Hilton of a witness. I don't know who. Oh, yes. As it relates to this case, do you know if Jimmy Winfrey ever took a plea? Yes, he did. All right, we have all the jurors now. Okay, I'll continue to look at it over lunch or break. We're not gonna need this limiter this morning, right?
No, Ron, we probably won't need it until when the investigative finishes.
Okay, great. All right, let's get the next witness, get the jury out to approach,
These are
sorry.
just, the PowerPoints that we're gonna show, so we have a copy of them.
Okay, okay.
And the exhibit list is on its way down. So these duplicates or? No, different ones. Different ones, okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, jury.
Thank you. All right, y'all have your next witness on the stand. Sergeant Ingram, would you swear that witness for us? Can you stand up till you get sworn, please? All right, go ahead, Ms. Hilton.
Hollis Brown, Hollis Brown, Brown.
And good morning, Ms. Brown, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you currently employed?
Atlanta Police Department, Crime Scene Unit.
If you could speak up.
Atlanta Police Department, Crime Scene Unit,
And how long have you been with the crime scene unit at Atlanta Police Department?
5 years.
And has your entire career with APD been as a crime scene tech?
Yes, ma'am.
Currently, what shift do you work?
I'm currently on day watch
And what time is that?
from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
When did you start on day watch?
July.
Prior to serving on day watch, what shift were you assigned?
I was on morning watch,
And what time is morning watch?
11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And how long were you on morning watch?
I was on morning watch for 4 years.
And taking you to March 2022, were you working morning shift back in March of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to direct your attention to two separate locations that you responded to in March of 2022. First, I want to direct your attention to March 11th, 2022. Did you have the occasion to respond to I-7585 northbound and Fair Drive?
Yes.
And why did you respond to that location?
I was called to that scene for a homicide.
And I'm going to ask you today, do you remember the APD case number associated with location?
No, ma'am.
Did you do a report in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Will looking at a copy of your report help refresh your memory as to the location, the APD case number?
I'm sorry.
Would taking a look at your police report help refresh your memory as to the APD case number?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission to approach, Your Honor? I'm going to show you what I'm going to mark as 4VVA. Is that your police report?
Yes.
And does that help refresh your memory as to the APD case number associated with that police report?
Yes.
What is the APD case number?
220700312.
And that's on March 11th?
Yes.
Why did you respond to that location?
I responded to that location for a homicide.
And about what time did you arrive at that location?
Approximately around 5.
Is that 5 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
And why were you requested to go to that location?
There was a vehicle on the expressway with a passenger who was deceased and another male had been transported.
What did you find when you got there?
I found a grayish looking vehicle with defects all around the driver's side, the rear, and the passenger side, with a deceased male sitting in the passenger seat, front passenger seat.
Did you see any of the shell casings?
Yes, they were in on the expressway.
With the car, was there anything sitting on top of or around the car?
There was a handgun sitting on the roof of the vehicle,
On what side of the vehicle?
the driver's side.
And you said there was a passenger still seated in the car. Were they alive or deceased?
They were deceased.
Did you find any weapons on that individual?
He had a handgun in his waistline area.
Now, you talked about shell casings. How far did the shell casings stand on that highway?
I don't really remember too much, but I know they were before we hit the vehicle.
When you say before you hit the vehicle, what do you mean?
So they started a little bit further back, going towards where the vehicle was at.
And did you take pictures of the scene as you found it?
Yes,
And have you had the opportunity to review some of those photographs that you took on March 11, 2022?
yes,
Okay, in front of you, you have the opportunity to look at excuse me, Stacy Exhibit 4 VV through '63 VV.
yes,
And did you look at those previously when you were before coming into court?
yes,
All right. And do those appear to be a fair, accurate depiction of some of the images that you took back on March 11, 2022?
yes.
Your Honor, this time the state would like to admit Stacy Exhibit 4 VV through '63 VV into evidence.
Those are admitted.
How many shell casings did you recover?
I don't recall.
We're looking at a copy of your police report, help refresh your memory.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Once you've read it and your memory's been refreshed, just look up and let me know.
Okay,
Okay. How many shell cases did you recover?
it was 31.
And when you recovered those shell casings, how did you package the shell casings when you recovered them?
Individually in a little coin pouch.
And what did you do with the shell casings once you recovered them and packaged them in the coin pouch?
I took them back to our annex and processed them for latent prints.
And after processing for latent prints, what did you do with those shell casings?
I placed them back in an individual coin bag, labeled them, and sent them off to our crime lab.
What caliber shell casings were they?
9mm.
Now I'm going to publish first, starting with State's Exhibit 4 VV. And it should come up on your screen as well. And now also looking at 6VV. Now I want to go to 6VV. And then 7VV. Is this the vehicle in which you found on the highway when you arrived at the location?
Yes.
Turning to 10VV. (11VV) and 12VV. What were you depicting in those three pictures?
The defects in the vehicle.
Now looking at 14VV. And let me go and ask, for 10, 11, and 12, what side of the vehicle were those defects on?
The driver's side.
Now looking at 14VV and 15VV. What were you taking pictures of in those two pictures?
The defects in the vehicle and the damage to the window.
And what side of the vehicle is that?
Passenger side.
Okay. And is that where you found the male that you discussed earlier?
Yes.
And was the driver present when you arrived on scene?
No.
Do you know where the driver went?
I was told he had been transported.
Transported to the hospital?
Yes.
Now, starting at 19VV, and I'm going to ask you to look at the packet that's in front of you. Through 51VV, what is in 19VV through 51VV?
They're photos of my casings.
Okay. And are those the individual photos of the shell cases that you collected?
Yes.
All right. Now I want to go to 53VV. (54VV), 55VV, 56VV, 57VV, 58VV, 59VV, 60VV, 61VV, 62VV, and 63VV. Were those all the shell casings that you collected in this case?
Yes.
And looking at starting from 53VV to 63VV, was that the stretch of where all of the shell casings were on the highway?
Yes.
And did the shell casing start from the rear of the vehicle where you found it all the way up towards the front of the vehicle?
Yes.
And did it go past the front of the vehicle?
Yes.
And were all the shell casings that you recovered on that scene 9mm?
Yes.
After collecting and processing the shell casings, once you went back to headquarters and after you took your pictures, did that conclude your involvement in this case?
Yes.
All right. Now I want to direct your attention to March 16th, 2022. Did you have the occasion to respond to 2830 Waters Road in Atlanta, Georgia?
Yes.
And was that about 5 days after the incident that we just looked at?
Yes.
And do you remember that APD case number?
No, ma'am.
Did you do a report in that case?
Yes, ma'am.
Will looking at a copy of your report help refresh your memory as to the case number, APD case number?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission to approach again, Your Honor. I'm going to show you what I'm going to mark as 248 VVA. Do you recognize 248 VVA?
Yes,
And how do you recognize 248 VVA?
it's my report with my name on it.
Um, and what is the APD? Does that help refresh your memory as to the APD case number associated with this case?
Yes,
What is the APD case number?
220750015.
And that date was 3/16/2022.
Yes,
And what time did you respond to that location?
around 2:30.
Is that in the morning?
Yes, ma'am.
And for the March 11th incident, did you say that you responded about 5 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you respond to that location?
I was called to this location for a shots fired call.
And what was the weather conditions like when you responded to that location?
It was raining a lot.
You said it
It was raining a lot.
And does rain affect how you process a scene?
Yes, it can.
How?
It can distort my photos a little bit. It can also be hard to find certain pieces of evidence.
And when you say certain piece of evidence, what type of evidence might be more challenging to find when it's raining outside?
Casings, anything involving glass, blood.
What did you observe when you first responded to that scene?
When I arrived, I noticed there were shell casings laying in the grass area by the fence. In front of the fence, there was a little street. There was casings located in the street as well. There was defects in vehicles to the next door, the house next door. There were defects also in the fence and the vehicle in front of the house.
Did you take pictures when you arrived to this location?
Yes,
And have you had the opportunity to review those photographs before your testimony here today?
yes.
Permission to approach, Your Honor? I'm going to first show you 248 VV through 271 VV. Are these images that you saw prior to your coming into court today?
Yes,
And then I'm going to show you next 272 VV through 308 VV. Are those also items or pictures that you saw prior to your testimony today?
yes,
And then last terminal is 309 VV through 315 VV. Had you had the opportunity to review those photos prior to your testimony here today?
yes,
Do those appear to be fair and accurate depictions of the pictures that you took on March 16, 2022?
yes.
You're at this time, the state would like to tender State's Exhibit 248 VV to 315 VV into evidence. And permission to publish. First, starting with 248 VV. And is that the mailbox located in front of the location?
Yes,
And what is the address on the mailbox?
2830.
And is that Waters Road?
Yes,
All right. Now looking at 249 VV. What is depicted in 249 VV?
that's where the scene occurred.
And looking at 249 VV, do you see the gate that's in front of the location?
Yes,
Are there any defects in that gate in front of the location?
yes.
Where on the gate are the defects?
They're going to be in between the trash cans.
And for the record, is that the blue trash, the blue Atlanta recycling trash can and the green trash can?
Yes,
And is that also where the hand is indicating on the picture?
yes.
Right. Now looking at 252 VV. What is contained in 252 VV?
That is a vehicle parked in front of the residence.
And there's some other kind of spots on the image. Is that from the raindrops?
Yes,
All right. Looking at 253, 254, and 255 EV, is that the same vehicle that we just looked at previously?
yes.
Now, looking at 255 EV, what, if anything, were you depicting in 255 EV?
The defect in the vehicle.
And if we can scroll in, is that the defect that you're referring to?
Yes.
Do you recall sitting here now what side of the vehicle that defect is on?
From this photo, it looks like the passenger side,
Okay.
rear passenger window.
All right. Now looking at 257 VV. What is being depicted in 257 VV?
The driver's side of the vehicle with defects.
And I'm going to show you, where are the two defects, excuse me, or not two, where are the defects that you see?
The driver's side window.
Are there any other defects on the driver's side of the car?
I don't see, well, there's one right here below the side view mirror, a little bit further down where the mouse is.
Is that where the hand is?
Yes,
And if we can pull the photo towards the left. Are there any other defects?
I can't see from this photo, so no.
Turning, if you can look behind you, are there any defects on the back window?
It looks like it may be a defect. I can't really tell between the raindrops.
Okay. Now looking at 258 VV. Is that a close-up of the defect that we saw on the front passenger, excuse me, the front driver's side window?
Yes,
All right. 259 VV. Is that a defect on the rear driver's side? 260 VV. Is that a close-up of the defect that was on the front driver's side of the vehicle?
yes.
Now looking at 261 VV. Where's this area of the home?
This is on the right side of the residence.
And this is on the front porch of the residence?
Yes,
All right. Looking at 262 and 263 VV. What were you depicting in 262 and 263 VV?
the defect in the burglar bar and also the window.
Now looking at 264 VV and 265 VV. What were you depicting in 265 VV?
Showing the defects in the doors.
And is this a defect as we zoom in at the top of the door?
Yes,
And is there another defect as we zoom in on the bottom of the door?
yes.
If you could zoom in. Now looking at 266, 267, and 268 VV. What were you depicting the security cameras?
Yes,
All right. Now looking at 269 VV. 270 VV. 271 VV. Are those the shell casings that you spoke of earlier that were on the scene when you arrived?
Yes.
And pictures 272 through 308, are those just the individual pictures of all the shell casings that you collected?
Yes.
Right. How many shell casings did you collect?
Around 40, if I'm not mistaken.
And do you recall the types of shell casings that you collected?
They were, they're,
That's
they
fine.
don't, well, okay. They were 40s, I'm sorry, they were 5.57s, 223, 40s, and 9s.
Okay. And have you had the opportunity to look at those items today before your testimony?
Yes.
Mr. Sharp. Commissioner Pocher, give me your line.
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as 424 EV. You can, you come prepared. Can you, look in that bag and tell me if you recognize the items in your bag? In the bag, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay. And how do you recognize those items?
They're casings from my scene with my handwriting.
All right. And do they appear to be in the same or similar condition as when you collected them on March 16, 2022?
The casings or the packaging?
The packaging.
Yes.
Okay. And is your identification on all of the packaging as you remember it from March of 2022, March 16th of 2022?
Yes.
Now, this time the state would like to tender and admit the contents of 424 VV into evidence.
All right, that's admitted.
Can you tell us how many of each type of shell casings did you find?
There were 11 5.7s, 2 223s, 8 40 calibers, and 19 9mm.
11 5x7.
2 223s, 8 40s, and 19 9mm.
When you collected those shell casings, did you do the same thing that you discussed, that you did earlier with the March 11th shell casings?
Yes.
And when you talked about the March 11th shell casings and how you packaged them, did you package the shell casing from March 11th in the similar way that you packaged these shell casings?
Yes.
And then did you turn these shell casings over to the APD crime lab in order for any further testing?
Yes.
After taking the pictures, collecting the evidence, and turning it over to APD, that concludes your involvement in this case.
Yes.
All right, court's indulgence for a moment. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Cross.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Crime scene Derek Brown. My name is Max Shard. I represent Shannon Stillwell, okay? Let me just ask you about the March 11th scene that you worked on first, okay?
That's the one from the expressway, correct?
The expressway. Now, did you write a report regarding that case?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have that report?
yes, sir.
Okay. If you need to refer to the report, just let me know if you need to refresh your recollection, okay?
Okay,
All right. March 11th on the expressway, we saw the pictures. Looked like a Kia Stinger on the right lane of the expressway.
yes,
Okay, and the car had numerous bullet holes in it. Correct?
yes.
Okay. Who were the victims in that case?
For my report, I only have one listed, and that was the driver,
And the driver, what was the driver's name?
Christian McMiller.
Okay. All right. And your understanding is 2 people were shot and ultimately died in that case, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know if anyone has been arrested for that case?
No,
No, you don't know, or no, no one has?
no, I don't know.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move to March 16th, okay, 2830 Waters Road. It sounds like from the pictures, there's a house on Waters Road with a wooden fence around it, correct?
Yes,
And that's what your pictures reflect?
yes,
Okay. And when you arrived, it was rainy day, and you were doing your best to document the evidence, correct?
yes,
Okay. And there were a number of shell casings. I think you said you collected 40, correct?
yes,
And were they all outside the fence?
yes,
Okay. And you noted as part of your work that there were bullet defects, there were holes in the house, in the windows, in cars that were parked in the yard, correct?
yes,
Okay. It was consistent with people shooting from the street area towards that house, correct?
yes.
Okay. Do you know anyone who has been charged with shooting at that house?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Thank you. So, Ms. Brown, this brown paper bag is labeled 424VV, correct?
Yes,
And that's the paper bag that you put all the shell casings you collected from 2830 Waters Road, correct?
yes,
Okay. Now, you preserve that evidence so it could be later processed by GBI or other people for ballistics and things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
Knives and hits, etc.
yes.
All right. If I am to ask the scientists or the GBI people later on about this case, what numbers would I need to know that we're talking about the same shell casings?
There were 40 cases, so it should be numbers 1 through 40.
As far as the case number, would it go by the APD case number, or what would be the cross-reference, if you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know how GBI actually labels theirs.
Okay, but you have it in the case number that you've already given us, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. One other thing I just wanted to clarify and possibly correct. We talked about the different shell casings that were collected, right? In a total of 40.
Yes,
Okay. There was 2 223s,
yes,
840 caliber,
yes,
19 9mm,
yes,
and 11 5.7 by 28, correct?
yes,
Okay. Ms. Hill, do I have your permission to correct that? So it shouldn't say 5.7, it shouldn't say 5 times 7, it should say 5.7 528, correct?
yes,
And all of these, shell casings are for different caliber bullets, correct?
Yes,
And a gun wouldn't shoot different caliber bullets. A gun would just shoot one specific caliber, correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not a ballistics expert. I
Okay.
just know they fire.
Fair enough. Thank you. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, redirect.
Just looking at your photos from March 16th, I want you to look at 310 VV through 315 VV.
Which numbers?
310 VV through 315 VV.
Okay.
Earlier, you talked about going to another home and taking pictures of some defects. Is that the home next door to 2830 where you went and took other pictures?
Yes,
And looking at 311 VV, 312, 313, 314, and 315, is that the vehicle that was of interest that had defects inside of the vehicle?
yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, thank you for your time. You're excused. Call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Detective Kevin Packer to the stand.
Judge,
Yes,
you'd like for me to leave these here?
yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Thanks. I don't think so. I don't think he's testified yet.
My name is Kevin Leon Packer. It's Kevin. My last name is Leonpaccher.
Good morning, Detective Lynn Packer. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Can you tell the jury where you're currently working at?
Well, working and employed, I'm a detective with the Atlanta Police Department. I've been with APD for over 22 years. And after spending the last about 14 and a half years in the homicide unit, I have also joined the FBI as a task force officer. And my current assignment is, as of about 3 weeks ago, I've moved out of my role in homicide to a role as a full-time task force officer with the FBI, assigned to a violent crime squad in the Atlanta division or the Atlanta field office here.
In general, what are some of your roles and responsibilities that you currently do?
So currently, I'm over 14 years in homicide. I'm tying up a lot of loose ends, finishing up some case files, and still doing some active casework on some of those cases. But my primary role with the FBI is in this violent crime squad. We work any violent crimes that have a federal nexus, essentially any violent crimes that might be a federal offense. I work on exigent circumstance cases, sometimes prisoner escapees, sometimes kidnappings, sometimes missing children. I'm also a member of the FBI's cellular analysis survey team after having gone through the certification curriculum for the CAST team last year.
Do you work with Agent Bernie?
I do, regularly and often.
Now, when was it that you started working with the FBI?
June 1st of last year, so about a year and a half ago now.
Now, when you were with APD and working as a homicide detective, do you have any experience with extracting cell phones?
I do.
Can you explain to the jury what experience you have regarding that?
Starting with my experience with APD that led me to mobile device forensics or dumping cell phones. After being a patrol officer, I joined APD in 2002, and I was a patrol officer up until 2008, where I made detective. I spent a year doing mostly violent crime investigations, but any generalized investigations. Sometimes I'd work shootings and robberies, and sometimes I'd work parcel thefts, like package thefts and fraud. In 2009, I was transferred to the Special Victims Unit, where my role there was working offenses, investigations into offenses of a sexual nature, but primarily those involving children, with an emphasis on protecting children from online exploitation. And in that role, I began to familiarize myself with mobile device forensics, because mobile devices were an instrument used to affect that type of crime. In 2010, I moved to the homicide unit, and there's been just an ever-increasing use of mobile devices in criminal investigations and the data that we can obtain from them. In 2014, I attended my first formalized training in mobile device forensics, and that was a class put on by the Public Agency Training Council. They're a very large private entity that conducts law enforcement training. And that instruction was cell phone technology and forensic data recovery. So that was instruction, a 1-week course, 40 hours on working with cell phone records, mapping out cell phone activity, how phones communicate with cell networks. But it was also mobile device forensics. And at the conclusion of that class, I also obtained a certification in Oxygen Forensic Suite, which is one of the many tools that we use to dump cell phones, or at least did back then. In 2018, I attended a certification course put on by a company called MSAB, and they make a tool called XRY. Again, one of the forensic tools that are out there available for law enforcement to use to dump cell phones and get data off of cell phones. And I obtained 2 certifications from XRY. One was just a standard certification in mobile device forensics, and the other was an intermediate certification, which worked with doing some advanced extractions of mobile devices. In between 2014 and present day, I've taken other webinars, workshops, in-person workshops with various companies, including Gray Shift and Magnet Forensics, and product updates with XRY. I've attended and spoken at several conferences across the US and internationally, detailing how I use mobile device forensics and the extraction process, and in sifting through data in criminal investigations, and learn from others and other law enforcement agencies that are doing the same to try to identify new strategies for sifting through data.
Now, roughly how many phone extractions have you done in your law enforcement career?
Several hundred would probably be a low number. It's not uncommon in many cases to come across, especially cases that have multiple suspects, to come across 10 or more devices in a single case. In my 14 plus years working homicide investigations, we didn't just dump suspects' phones, but oftentimes with the consent of witnesses that may have received a text message that was relevant to an investigation, or captured video of a crime in progress, we would conduct extractions of those as well. So a low ball, several hundred, probably into over 1,000 devices.
Now, when you were with APD Homicide, would other detectives or officers come to you to help them with phone extractions?
Yes, often.
Did you ever have, or let me ask you this, do you know an investigator, Viverito?
I do.
Has she ever utilized or asked your help to extract cell phones on cases she's working?
Many times, in many different cases.
And before testifying here today, did you have an opportunity to review some USBs that pertain to some phone extractions?
Yes.
I'm approaching you with what's marked as 227 Victor Victor 1 and 227 Victor Victor 2. Can you tell the jury, or let me ask you first, do you recognize those items?
I do.
And what are they?
They are USB drives, one of which contains cell phone extractions that were from devices associated with Mr. Shannon Stillwell or Shannon Jackson. I'm familiar with him by both names. And the other is and I should say that one is States Exhibit 227VV1.
That's correct.
And then the other one, which is a silver and gray USB device, States Exhibit 227VV2, contains mobile device extractions for phones that are associated with Marquavius Huey.
And how many phones extractions are there on each of those USBs?
If I could review
Yes.
my notes, but I believe it was 3 for each device. Yes, 3 for each device,
Now,
each USB drive.
can you describe for the jury, you've discussed phone extractions, what kind of data comes back? Can you kind of describe the process when you get a phone to extract?
Yes, it depends, is the short answer. So it depends on the state of the phone, whether or not it's powered on or powered off at the time we recover it, and whether or not the user had unlocked it since it's last being powered on. That's a good state for us, and using some advanced forensic tools, we can still recover a lot of data, even if we don't even know the passcode to the phone. So in a situation like that, we would recover most data that we would want to see for investigative purposes, like calls, messages, not just messages that are text messages, but messages that are iMessages, which are not text messages, by the way. iMessages sent from iPhone to iPhone do not travel through the cellular network like an SMS message. Those do not appear on records from cell phone companies. Those will only appear in mobile device extractions. So we recover messages, photographs, videos, web history, sometimes health data, again, dependent upon the state of the phone, and third-party application data. So depending upon how an application works, if it stores data on the device, then we can sometimes recover that data. And depending upon the forensic tool we use, it could parse out that data and show it in the messages section as well. For instance, DMs on Instagram may appear in a cell phone extraction. In the case of a phone being powered off, Apple uses encryption to encrypt data. And if the phone powers off, from iPhone 5S, which is a long time ago, to present day iPhone 16, there's a whole separate chipset inside of Apple iPhones that does nothing but hardware encryption for iOS devices or iPhones. And that can present some challenges to us. If we do not have the passcode for the phone and the phone's powered off, we're going to have a difficult time getting all that data that we want to see for investigative purposes. And we'll be left with sometimes a list of blocked numbers on the device, sometimes some cached images or images that are temporarily stored in the phone's memory, but aren't the photos and videos taken by the camera inside the phone. We won't see messages or web history. So we're very limited if the phone's powered off. So again, it depends, but the shorter answer is, in best case scenario, we get pretty much everything that you have on your phone.
Now, is 2 of the phones that investigator Vic Burrito asked you to extract pertaining to Shannon Jackson or Shannon Stillwell, did investigator Vic Burrito have a passcode for those?
Yes.
And roughly, was it in December of 2022 when you conducted the extraction on those 2 phones?
Yes.
I wanted to also circle back. You had mentioned web history. Is when the data comes back, are you able to look and see web searches?
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury what that means or what that may show?
What's important to note that whatever we get on the phone is just a log of activity for the phone. So I may not know who was physically holding the phone unless we have a witness or it's on video to show who was physically operating a device. So when I see web history or I see a search that appears in the web history, what I know is that the phone navigated to the internet and conducted this search. So for instance, if I go onto my iPhone and I go to Google and I type in a search term, then I would see the URL or the web address of what that search term result is. That's the page that Google will navigate to, that my phone will navigate to. And in that URL, you'll see an indication that this may have been a Google search. you'll see some indication of what the search terms were. If there's multiple search terms like Kevin Leon Packer Court, then you may see Kevin plus Leon Packer plus Court. And what that means is that the phone navigated to that page that may have those results from Google. If someone were to send a link of search results, which I don't think I've ever seen someone send a link of Google search results, but that would have the same web address. So whether someone types in the search term or navigates to the page that resulted in those search terms, because someone, say, texted them a link, then you would still navigate to the Google page that has the results for those search terms.
Now, when you do these phone extractions for other detectives, like you did in this case for Vivarito, you didn't personally, in this case, review the contents of the extraction. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Now, when you give it to them, are they able to navigate and see the data that you just described?
Yes.
And is the system that they see that data for messages or calls, are they able to tell if it's incoming, outgoing, and who they're communicating with?
Yes. The tool that I use and used in this case is XRY. That's the one that's made by that company MSAB. And XRY has essentially, it's two different tools. One is the extraction tool, that's XRY. And then the reviewer or reader tool is called Examine. So Examine is used to open up the XRY extracted files, and it presents the results of the extraction. And you can create filters. You can say, I want to see all the calls, or I want to see all the messages, or you can select both and say, I want to see just calls and messages. And when you click on messages, it brings up the messages. It's essentially divided into 3 columns. Filters on one side, the left, calls, messages. And then in the middle, it'll display the calls and messages. And you can sort it by time or sort it by how frequently someone communicated with this person. And then when you click on a message, in the right-hand side, it'll give you more details about it. So you can tell in the center column or in the more details column on the right, from whom the message was sent and to whom it was sent.
Now, when you extract these phones, is there any data gleaned of if various SIM cards were used on a phone?
Yes.
Can you describe, one, what a SIM card is and how that data may show up?
SIM cards, which are slowly going away. SIM cards are physical cards that insert into a mobile device. Before we had them just for like GSM phones. That's before we went to like what modern day LTE technology is. We would have a SIM card in like an AT&T phone, but maybe not a Verizon phone. But with SIM cards, they're inserted into the device and they contain information that is used to authenticate that phone or that user on the cellular network. So there are a couple of identifiers. One is an ICCID. That's the SIM card identifier, integrated circuit card identifier. The other is the IMSI, or International Mobile Subscriber Identity. That's a unique identifier for a cellular network, and the IMSI is used in that authentication process. You put a SIM card in your phone, you turn it on. If you have AT&T or now Verizon, it goes to the Verizon cell sites and it goes through an authentication process. Verizon looks at your IMSI, identifies your phone number. The phone number is stored on the SIM card as well. And it says, yes, Kevin's paid his bill this month. He's allowed to use the cellular network and you'll have access to make and receive calls. In iOS devices or iPhones, some of that SIM data is stored. Even if you remove the SIM card from the device, we may still see the ICCID or the IMSI and the date that SIM card was in the device. It'll have a date last updated.
Did you see any SIM card changes in the 2 phones associated with Shannon Stillwell or Shannon Jackson that you got in December of 2022?
I did.
And did you ever find or see any connection or association with a phone number ending in any phone numbers of interest? I should say?
Yes.
What was that connection?
Well, there was a phone number that I understand was a phone number that was identified by
Shane.
What was the phone number without saying anything else about it?
The phone number is 470-814-8694.
And what was the connection with that 8694 phone number when you looked at the cell phones you got in December related to Shannon Stillwell, Shannon Jackson?
It was the phone number associated with an Apple iPhone 12 mini. And that was one of those devices that investigator Viverito asked me to conduct a forensic analysis of, and that she provided the passcode for.
Now, after you gave, oh, Your Honor, the state tenders State's Exhibit 227, Victor 1 and 2 into evidence.
Yes. Y'all go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Detective Lane Packer, did you have the opportunity on March 17th of 2022 to participate in a search warrant at
Yes.
2830 Waters Road?
Yes.
Can you describe for the jury how you got involved in that search warrant?
Well, I mentioned just a moment ago that I know Investigator Viverito. I've worked with her a lot over the years. She's been in a few different roles, and I've worked with her in each of those capacities with the different agencies that she's worked with, including when the search warrant was obtained and to be executed. So she asked for my assistance to execute the search warrant, and that's why I participated.
Now, when you got there, was it daylight or nighttime?
It was daylight.
And was there other units within APD that were there for the search?
Yes.
What were some of those units?
The SWAT team, our intelligence unit, I think some gang unit investigators, and myself, and I believe my sergeant and our homicide unit, Ray Layton, were there, and our crime scene technician.
Now, you personally, when you go to scenes or work cases, do you take any photographic or video evidence yourself?
Sometimes.
And what do you use for that?
Usually a city-issued cell phone to photograph or video a walkthrough of the area.
And did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Now, Your Honor, I am approaching with what's been marked as 336 Victor. Detective Lane Packer, before testifying here today, have you had a chance to review that medium I gave you?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what that is?
336 VV, State's Exhibit, contains all the photographs and videos that I took while I was out there on Waters Road.
And I'm also going to approach you, Detective Lane Packer, with what's been marked as State's Exhibits 316 Victor through 335 Victor. Are those photographs that you took the scene that day?
Yes, and at least one photograph is, I believe I took when I was back at Atlanta Police Headquarters after packaging some of the evidence, and I photographed the packaging of it.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves to tender into evidence 316 Victor through 335, as well as 336 Victor, the USB.
All right, those are admitted, and also you tendered, but then we broke, and I don't think I admitted on the record 227 Victor 1 and 2. Those are also admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to publish 336 Victor. Now, is this the location that you were at, Detective Lane Packer, on March 17, 2022?
Yes.
And when you do document search warrants or scenes that you walk through, do you kind of take an overview of the location?
Yes.
And is this you walking to the mailbox to document the address for this search?
Yes.
Now, had SWAT already cleared the residence by the time that you started searching?
Yes.
And I'm going to publish another portion of State's Exhibit 336, Victor Victor. Was there a Audi that you see in this clip when you got there?
Yes.
Now, do you typically try to capture the VIN number of vehicles that are on scenes?
Usually.
Can you tell the jury how were law enforcement officers able to get in this Audi vehicle?
You can see on the left there at the door, there's a coat hanger. The window was ajar, and investigators used a coat hanger to tug on the door handle to open the vehicle and access the interior of it.
Now, was there a firearm in that car?
Yes, on the passenger floorboard, protruding up into there's me. The passenger floorboard, the firearm was laying down on the floorboard and leaning against the passenger seat.
Now, after documenting the firearm inside of the vehicle, did you ever pull it out of the vehicle to examine it closer?
Yes.
I am going to publish 318 Victor Victor. Is that a picture of the firearm in the passenger seat where you found it?
Yes.
And what type of firearm was it?
This was a Ruger AR 5.56. It takes 5.56 caliber ammunition.
And I'm going to publish another portion of 336 Victor Victor. Do you see on the screen before I start this magazine and a firearm on the roof of the car?
Yes, that is the magazine that was inserted into the weapon when it was recovered.
Now, I'm going to play this first and ask you, is that cartridge you saw on the purple glove something that you had to get out of? Was that in the chamber or in the firearm when you examined it?
Best I recall, I could review my notes for it to refresh my recollection, but best I recall, yes, it was loaded with one round chambered and it had to be cleared to extract that round from the chamber.
If I approached you with a copy of your incident report, would that help refresh your memory?
Yes. I've refreshed my recollection about what I wrote in the incident report.
And what do you recall about that piece of ammunition?
My recollection's unchanged, that it was loaded with one round in the chamber, but I did not specifically note in my incident report that that round was chambered. But you can see the magazines are loaded, and the one round out would have been the round that we cleared from the firearm. And that's what I recall about the condition of that firearm when it was collected.
Now, I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to show you from this clip. Can you describe for the jury what is that, two magazines? And can you describe like what that was and with the tape and the different magazines?
Well, there's two magazines that are designed to fit that weapon, that AR, and they're taped together facing opposite directions. So if one were to insert the magazine and fire enough rounds to use all of the ammunition in that one magazine, one could then pull the magazine out, flip it over, reinsert it, and get back in battery and begin shooting additional rounds without having to drop a magazine, retrieve an additional magazine from an alternate location, and then load it in. It's taped together so it makes a quick extract, turn over, reload, and then the firearm would be ready to fire again.
Now, did you also collect this firearm that day?
I did.
Now, I am approaching with what is marked as 223 Victor Victor. And oh, actually, one brief second. With this specific firearm, did you do any research with this and contact any other law enforcement entities?
I did.
Can you describe for the jury what you did in relation to this firearm?
Is it permissible to talk about the results of inquiries I made on the firearm?
Yes.
Okay. So I checked the serial number of the firearm in the same way we would run a license plate to see if a car was stolen. We can run serial numbers of articles and firearms to see if they have been reported stolen. What I found was this firearm was reported stolen while in transit from a Ruger manufacturer in North Carolina while it was en route, I believe via UPS, to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, somewhere between origin and destination. It was stolen in this essentially cargo theft from UPS. And so it was recovered when I wrote the report for it. The ATF investigates firearms stolen while in transit. And I communicated with an agent of the ATF who then recovered the firearm at a later time.
Now, ultimately, did the ATF ever come or get in possession of that firearm?
Yes, yeah, I made arrangements to ensure that the firearm, after being test fired for examination purposes and testing purposes, was then released into the custody of that ATF agent so he could continue his investigation.
Now, Detective Lean Packer, I'm going to publish 319 Victor Victor. Is this another photograph of that same firearm?
Yes,
I'm going to publish 320 Victor Victor. Is this a close-up where the trigger mechanism would be?
yes,
And 323 Victor Victor. Is this another photograph of those taped magazines in the gun?
yes.
Now, did you find any other items in that vehicle that you documented that day?
Yes.
What did you find?
There was a pink colored wool cap, I believe, in the back seat.
Did you collect that item?
Yes.
I'm approaching you with what's marked as 340 Victor Victor. And Detective Lean Packer, when you collect items at a scene, are you familiar with how APD property evidence labels and case numbers are for pieces of evidence?
Yes.
And is there any identifying features on that? And if you need to open it, you by all means can. That helps you know what is inside of it.
Well, I packaged this item and sealed it. My initials were on the original evidence seal. And I also wrote on there that it was a pink wool cap recovered from the Audi. And in the evidence label that I created, I labeled it as the brand Time and True pink wool cap. So at the time that I packaged it in this evidence envelope, it was a pink wool cap.
Your Honor, the state moves to tender into evidence 340 Victor Victor. And this,
I have an objection. Is 340 the firearm or the envelope there?
it is the envelope with the pink wool cap.
Objection, relevance 403.
Overruled.
And to be clear, this first, the vehicle where you had to, where officers put the coat hanger inside of it, is this the Audi we're talking about where you found this pink wool cap?
Yes.
That first vehicle, if you were to enter the property on kind of the right-hand side of the yard. I'll go back to 318 Victor Victor. Is this the vehicle that you found that pink wool cap?
Yes. Yes.
Did you also find any temporary tags or license plates in that vehicle?
Yes, multiple.
I am going to publish 324 Victor Victor. Are these some of the temporary plates that you found?
Yes,
And did you ever find a driver's license or identification in that car?
I did.
I'm going to publish 325 Victor Victor. Who was the individual's name that you found?
Eric Jerome Moore.
I'm going to publish 326 Victor Victor. Did you find some other registration paperwork for that vehicle
Yes,
with the same individual's name?
yes.
Now I'm going to publish another portion of, and is this the pink wool cap that you were just discussing?
Yes, and I've looked inside the envelope, which is open, and I can see it's the same pink wool cap.
I'm going to publish another portion of State's Exhibit 336 Victor Victor. And just to be clear, this is the video footage that you personally recorded that day. Is that fair?
Yes,
And to the right, that's depicted on the screen, is the vehicle we were just discussing.
yes.
Did you find any other firearms in the yard that day?
Yes. Approaching this Jeep vehicle, on the ground there was this firearm with a drum magazine.
Is the circular item the drum magazine?
Yes,
Is that increase the capacity of rounds that it can hold?
yes. The drum magazine is a high capacity ammunition magazine that loads rounds or cartridges in a circular motion. And as rounds feed into the firearm, they continue loading around in that circular motion to feed into the firearm. So it's just a high capacity magazine.
Now, Detective Leanpacker, I am approaching you now with what's marked as 223 Victor Victor. And I wanted to ask you if you're able to recognize that before you.
It's okay to go ahead and open it up?
It is.
Yes.
And what is that item?
It's the firearm that was just depicted in the video, and it's a AK M10762P firearm, and the drum magazine that was there as well.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves to tender into evidence what is marked as State's Exhibit 223 Victor Victor.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance in 403. Has nothing to do
We may need
with
to
this case.
Your Honor,
check that up.
I object to the speaking objections, and I can explain relevance outside the
Alright.
presence of the jury.
Coming up.
So, Detective Lean Packard, this is the firearm we were just discussing with the drum magazine that we see in the yard of 2830 Waters Road.
Yes, still covered with the same dirt.
Do you know if it rained the night prior?
I don't recall.
Now, I am going to. And I'm going to publish 328 Victor Victor. Is this the firearm that we were just discussing?
Yes.
I'm going to publish 329 Victor Victor. And with this specific type of magazine, do you see how the ammunition at the very end to the right? Does it keep feeding into it until all rounds are discharged or something else?
Till all rounds are discharged, or whoever's operating it stops shooting, as long as there's still rounds left. But yes, that's how it feeds, and that it's loaded in that circular motion and feeds up through the magazine into the firearm.
One brief moment. Now, you had mentioned that Jeep Liberty that we saw in that video.
Yes.
Was there any defects in that car or anything of note in that blue Jeep Liberty?
Yes.
What did you see?
On the driver's door, there appeared to be what we often say in homicide cases. We don't know what caused it, but it's a defect consistent with gunfire. It looked like a bullet hole in the door.
Now, I am about to publish, before I do, another portion of 336 Victor Victor. What part of the house is this frame right here?
This is the rear of the house.
And is that a stairwell in the rear that you see in this photograph?
There's a set of stairs that leads up, and then there's an open door in the back.
And did you ever go and explore or examine the basement level of this residence?
Yes.
I'm going to publish this next portion of 336 Victor Victor now. And is this opening that you are walking towards the basement of the home?
Yes.
Was there another stairwell inside of the basement?
There's stairs. Yes.
Were you able to get inside the home from those stairwell?
No. No, it's closed off. It's like wood that's like nailed shut, so it did not permit access from the basement level into the house.
Now, when you looked in the ceiling in this basement, was there any openings that were in the basement?
Yes.
And do you know where that went?
Into the house level above, but I don't recall which room it was.
Now, ultimately, did you go and conduct a search of the house inside the home?
Yes.
I am publishing 336 Victor Victor, another portion. But before I do, what is that? Let me ask you this. If you were to walk in the front door, do you know where we are in the house with this photograph right now?
Yes, if you walk in the front door, just to the left, there was a television, a large television, a flat panel TV, and yeah, there's some wires hanging down there.
I am publishing this next portion of 336 Victor Victor. Did you ever find or see any device that normally would be plugged into those when you were searching there at that time?
Yes and no. I did see at least one camera on the front porch that had a light illuminating from it, indicating the camera had power. And I believe these wires to terminate to that camera, because I was essentially trying to follow what are these cameras plugged into. And then so that on one end, I expect that one of these wires is plugged into at least that camera. On this end, no. You see those wires, they said to DVR, which I would expect to be a video recording system, a digital video recording system that would capture surveillance video from any cameras that terminated at the end of those wires. And these wires dangling there suggested there may have been one, but there was none there when I was there.
Now, Detective Leanpacker, I'm going to play briefly this last portion of the video, that the portion of 336 Victor Victor. Was there a bedroom nearby where these cords were?
Yes.
And after looking at the cords, did you ever go into that bedroom?
Yes.
And did you ever look in the closet in that bedroom?
Yes.
And in just a second, that right there, did you see that in the floorboard?
Yes.
What is that?
It's a void in the floor.
And do you know, did that go down, if you know, to the basement?
As I recall, yes, that was the hole in the floor that led to the basement. Or that, I should say, opened up to the basement. I want to say led, as if one would navigate through that hole to get down there.
That's fair enough. Now, I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as 163 Victor Victor. Did you ever see this item when you were in the house on March 17, 2022?
No.
I am going to publish the next video portion of 336 Victor Victor. Can you describe for the jury, before I play it, what you see here and what you found?
This is a plate carrier vest. It's a bit like the tactical vest I wear when I'm in uniform for APD. It has an insert inside of it. When you purchase it, it typically doesn't have an insert, but it's made to have an insert that's body armor. I'd say bullet resistant vests that we wear for law enforcement and that military often wears.
And did you search through this body armor?
I did.
Did it have, if you recall, what type of, in general, plate? Was it hard, soft, or some?
It was hard. Body armor that I have for my Atlanta police uniform is soft and flexible. This one was extremely heavy and hard, which would indicate to me it's a different level of body armor than the one that I wear for APD.
And was there any other cases found nearby the body armor?
Yes, there's a gun case or a rifle case.
Now, I wanted to ask you, did you ever find any firearms inside of the house?
Yes.
Where did you find it?
In a bedroom closet on the top shelf, there was a pistol.
I'm going to publish the next portion of 336 Victor Victor. Is this the inside of the home?
Yes.
And you had mentioned a top shelf where you found a firearm. Is this what you were discussing?
Yes.
Did you collect that firearm?
Yes. Ultimately, a crime scene technician took it away from the scene, but I participated in the collection of the item.
Now, I'm going to approach you with what has been marked as 222 Victor Victor. Do you recognize that item?
I do.
What is that item?
It's the Taurus pistol that was on the top shelf here.
And was that firearm loaded? And if you need,
I don't recall. It's got a magazine inside of it, but I think that the full processing of it was done by the crime scene technician.
that's fair. I'm publishing 317 Victor Victor, just the firearm we were just discussing.
Yes.
And 330 Victor Victor, is this another photograph of that firearm?
Yes.
Now, did you ever go up into the attic of that home?
I did.
How did you get up to the attic, if you recall?
I don't recall if there was a pull downstairs or a scuttle hole. I don't recall.
Now, before I play this next portion of 336 Victor Victor, is this the attic area of the home?
Yes.
And did you find anything up in the attic?
Yes.
What did you find?
There was a bucket full of ammunition of various calibers.
Now, I'm first going to approach you with this bag, and then I'm going to bring over 225 Victor Victor. And I'm going to set it down by your feet and ask you if you recognize that item.
Yes.
What is that?
That's the bucket of ammunition that was recovered from the attic.
And at some point, was that bucket inside of that bag that now has a hole in it?
Yes. The bucket was packaged by crime scene tech.
Victor into evidence. Feel free to examine 225 Victor Victor. What kind of ammo was in this bucket in the attic?
5.56 ammunition. There was a full box. 223 ammunition. Large ammunition, typically used with rifles. And rifle had green tips as well. Say, feel free to examine it.
Thank you, Detective Williams. Is there any other items inside 225 Victor Victor?
And this is a quantities that often will come in a large box. A Glock mag. A magazine for some type of rifle. Semi-automatic pistol. .28 caliber. An ammunition loader, which is used to quickly reload magazines with ammunition. And it's got one cartridge loaded inside of it.
Thank you, dude. Technically backer. I'm gonna help you when you get that back, move that.
More.
There's more. Keep going, Detective Backer. What else is inside?
Another box of .223 ammunition. That's pretty full. It's okay, I will open that one. Plastic sandwich bags. Another box that's pretty full of 5.56 ammunition. A digital scale. .7 by 28 ammunition. A box for an FN57 pistol magazine. Another box of 5.7 by 28 millimeter ammunition. An evidence bag with test bullets and cartridge cases. Another box of 5.7 by 28 ammunition. Bag packaged ammunition. Well, what I suspect to be marijuana. Without testing, I wouldn't.
Thank you.
And I did not. I returned the marijuana back to the bucket.
Let the record so reflect. And Your Honor, I don't believe that I formally tendered 222 Victor into evidence, but the state would move to 10. Is the firearm. Now, Detective Linebacker, I'm going to help make a little bit of room for you. Did you ever collect, Detective Linebacker, any items of clothing in that house?
Yes.
What did you collect?
A T-shirt that was found in a bin.
I'm approaching you with what's been marked as 226 Victor. Ask you if you recognize or see that item. Piece of clothing that you were describing.
Yes.
And I'm going to publish 332 Victor. What did that piece of clothing say?
The front of it had a print on it that read slime, and then in quotation marks it read slime. Its adjective is listed below that, and then it said a repulsive or despicable person, wipe your effing nose. I just say F asterisk ing. So wipe your effing nose, and then is you slime enough?
Did you ever examine the front yard? I'm going to publish another portion of State's Exhibit 336 Victor at this time. Can in terms of right here.
This is a portion of the front yard near those Herbie Kirby cans where I recovered 2 cartridge cases of different caliber.
And is that the first cartridge that you recovered?
Yes.
Is there a second cartridge case that you recovered?
Yes,
Is this documenting that second cartridge case that you recovered?
yes. The first one was a 5.7 by 28 millimeter, much like the ammunition that was in that bucket. And the other one was a 223.
Package those items or help them get transported back to APD?
I did. I packaged them and then photographed the packaging, which I referenced earlier.
Is publishing 334 Victor, are these cartridges that we just were discussing?
Yes,
Another picture of them at 335, and
Yes.
then 316 Victor, is that the packaging that you just discussed?
yes,
I'm approaching you with what's been marked as 224 Victor. Do you recognize that, Detective Leanpacker?
yes.
Is that, or what is that? I should ask you.
These are those two cartridge cases packed as I packaged them. And initially I sealed it to the crime lab for additional testing, which is that additional seal on there.
Your Honor, the state moves to tender into evidence 224. And Detective Leanpacker, was there a vehicle parked very close to the front door of that house?
Yes,
Can you describe for the jury what you saw in relation to that vehicle?
that vehicle was a 2011 Chevy Malibu, and it had significant damage from gunfire. There was gunfire. And then there was gunfire, I think, through the window, through the fender, through the pillar, like on the back. We call it the C pillar, it's the rear driver's side pillar. So there was just damage from gunfire in the car. And then there was damage behind it as well on portions of the residence, where the defects were to the car, as rounds may have traveled through the vehicle and into the house.
Was there any, do you know how many?
As I recall, I think 5, and I can refresh my recollection.
But if looking at a copy of your report would refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Please do.
Yes. My recollection is refreshed.
It was 5?
Yes.
Now, I am going to, or let me ask you this. In total, in your time working for Atlanta Police Department Homicide, do you get familiar with different parts of the city?
Yes.
And have you to various parts of Atlanta?
Yes.
I'm going to approach you with what is marked as 344 Victor through 50 through 353, as well as 216, all Victor. Yes, you may.
Can you read those numbers again for me too?
Yes, Your Honor. And to make it, yes, Your Honor.
Sure.
So, Your Honor, it is 344 through 353 minus 348 and 349, if that makes it easier for the court. So, and I'm not admitting 216.
350 through 353, and you're not tendering 316.
216, Your Honor, not tendering 216. So it's 344 through 347, Your Honor, and 350 through 353.
All right, those are admitted, and did you tender for admission 226, the shirt?
Your Honor, I believe that I did, but to be clear, the state would move the tender into the record 226 Victor.
No objection to 344 to 353 minus the
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharp. Detective Leanpacker, before testifying, did you have an opportunity to look over some of these photographs?
Yes,
Do you recognize them?
yes,
And are they a fair and accurate depiction of the locations in Atlanta that they depict?
yes,
Your Honor, the state moves to tender into evidence those items. I had shown them to Detective Leanpacker, Your Honor, before we admitted them.
These are the ones okay.
Correct, Your Honor.
Yes,
Thank you.
they're,
So Detective Leanpacker, I'm going to publish 344 Victor Victor. One brief moment, Your Honor. Where is this area, Detective Leanpacker?
that's, I believe it's 464 Windsor Street. It's at the corner of Windsor and Fulton, the northeast corner.
45 Victor Victor? Is this another photograph of that same location?
Yes,
I'm going to publish 346 Victor Victor. Is this the inside of that BP gas station?
yes,
I'm going to publish 347 Victor Victor. What is this?
it's the liquor store that's next door to it. It's kind of attached.
I'm going to publish 350 Victor Victor. Do you recognize where this area is?
Yes, that's appears to be Windsor. You were to come out of that BP gas station, again, which is at Fulton and Windsor, go north on Windsor, you're looking north towards I-20.
And I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 351 Victor Victor.
Image of
Of the
Windsor and
intersection.
I-20. Yes.
I'm going to go to 353, 352 Victor Victor.
Same intersection.
Now, Detective Leanpacker, if you were to leave that BP, go to that intersection and get on I-20 West, would you ever hit the perimeter?
Yes.
And over intersect if you kept going down I-20 West?
If you go I-20 West, you would eventually hit Interstate 285, the perimeter. That's in the Adamsville neighborhood of Atlanta. And then if you keep going I-20 West, another major roadway you hit just after you pass over 285 is Fulton Industrial Boulevard.
Thank you, Detective Leanpacker. One brief moment. Detective Leanpacker, I'm going to publish 353 Victor Victor. And that's a Scribner's error, Your Honor. It shows 253, but that's what has been admitted as 353. Is this also near Windsor?
Yes. Yeah, different perspective, but yes.
I am going to go back to 164 Victor Victor? Or I'm going to go back to 164 Victor Victor. I'm going to go one. TCL Roku TV on it.
Yes.
Was that TV in 2830 Waters Road on March 17th when you did the search?
Yes.
And do you see on this photograph like a table or some kind of setup on the right-hand side of this photograph?
Yes.
Do you see any cords that resemble or appear to be ones that you saw on March 17th?
Yes.
And the screen that appears to be mounted on
Was not present.
one brief moment, Your Honor. Detective Linebacker, I'm going to go back to 250 in just a minute. And if you were heading north from that BP gas station at 464 Windsor and we're trying to get on I-20 West, where's the rampway that you would get on?
You go underneath the Interstate 20 and then go west from there. Then to go west.
Okay. Thank you. Or I'll publish 253. What?
Yes. That's the westbound ramp. So this perspective is looking south along Windsor Street. And that roadway that goes at the right edge, that would be heading west on I-20 there.
Thank you, Detective Linebacker. Your Honor, no further questions at this time by the state.
All right, I assume y'all are gonna have cross, is it gonna be like 30 minutes? All right. Yes, okay, go ahead.
Afternoon now.
Good afternoon. Yes, sir.
I just want to ask you first about what we talked about first in direct, talking about the downloads of the phone. We talked about you were able to find searches on a phone that you download or extract the data from, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I should say I didn't find searches because I didn't sift through the data, but I'm aware of there being some links associated with search.
You extracted information from several phones, including my client's phones. But you did not.
That's correct.
Okay, do you know who reviewed the downloaded information?
I provided all of the extractions to investigator Marissa Viverito, who I believe conducted thorough reviews of the data.
Okay, now it seems to me that your role now in law enforcement focuses a lot on cell phones, correct?
Yes and no. I actually, in my role now with the FBI, I expect that I'll be spending a lot more time working with cell phone records from providers and less time working in mobile device forensics. So I'm transitioning now. But yes, over the past several years, I've been working a lot with mobile device forensics.
You were once a homicide investigator, though, correct?
Up until about 3 weeks ago, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, as a homicide, is there some information you'd want to know? Let me back that up. That search was made, correct?
Yes.
And now let me be clear, because on direct, you did say a few things. It could be link sent by someone else, right?
Yes.
It could be someone searching in their phone themselves, correct?
Yes.
And it could be someone else utilizing a device, right? Just because it's someone's device doesn't mean they were the ones utilizing it at that time, correct?
Yes, I wouldn't count that as a third option, because as a forensic examiner, I'd only be concerned about what it did. It's only one of the two, right? The phone navigated to a URL that resulted in search results from, say, Google, regardless of who's holding it.
Okay, now, as an investigator, if you saw search results in a phone of a person of interest, you would want to know what date that search was allegedly done, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You would want to know, if you were investigating a case with such a cell phone, you would want to know if on that date of that search, other people had already alerted the owner of the phone of the fact that something had occurred at an address, correct?
I would take that into consideration in my examination of the results, yes.
So for instance, if or shooting Smith Street X Bell Street, corner of Smith and Bell, you would want to know if the person that owns his phone by themselves with no prompting, or if someone else has already alerted them to a fact that a shooting had occurred at that address. That would be an important fact to know as an investigator, wouldn't it?
It would be important, an important consideration in how I reviewed the data, yes.
Okay, and you'd also want to know, if the person searched these terms, hours after an event or days. If there was press coverage about this event prior to the person searching.
Objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Yes, and I'll add to explain my answer. It's not uncommon in cases of, I've worked homicides and I've been on our complex case squad in homicides. So I've worked a lot of violent crime cases.
If we're going to get into what usually happens.
I can let him explain his answer.
Okay, thank you.
And it's not uncommon that there is media coverage of violent crime incidents when I'm conducting an investigation and searches to be related to that media coverage of that incident.
Okay, so, but certainly there's a difference between someone, a suspect searching unknown except them versus searching keywords after there's been media coverage, correct?
That's difficult for me to answer in the hypothetical because oftentimes as an investigator, I don't know what